Communications. We do have one proclamation this evening, and it's mine. So I will now read Proclamation 1059, recognizing the importance of trout in the South Platte River. Whereas following the 1965 flood of the South Platte River, the river was found to be so polluted that it was ecologically dead and unable to sustain aquatic life of any kind. And whereas through the efforts of the Greenway Foundation, the river and its surrounding lands were reclaimed, restored, and revitalized over the past 53 years. And whereas through the efforts of Denver Trout Unlimited, the river has been improved with fish habitat projects, and the river has been celebrated as an accessible place to learn how to fish. And whereas trout stocked as an approved experiment in the Denver South Platte River in March 2017, funded by local anglers and friends of the river, Reese Duggan of Revesco Properties and Matthew Burkett of the Fly Fisher Group, have thrived in the downtown area and are now trophy sized. And whereas fly fishing anglers have helped restore the image of our rebounding river, and whereas these anglers put on an impressive display of catch and release fishing of rainbow trout during the rededication of Shoemaker Plaza in October of 2017, and whereas these fish are a prized, wild, and welcome inhabitant of the river in our urban environment, and they are worthy of protecting. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the City Council of the City and County of Denver, Section 1, that the Denver City Council hereby proclaims the Denver South Platte a prized catch, photo, and release river where citizens and visitors are encouraged to fish with debarbed artificial lures and flies for the protection of the fish. Section 2, that the clerk of the City and County of Denver shall attest and affix the seal of the City and County of Denver to this proclamation, and that a copy be transmitted to the Denver Trout Unlimited, the Greenway Foundation, Reese Duggan, and Matthew Burkett. I move the proclamation 18-01059 be adopted. It has been moved and seconded. We'll move into comments, and I'll kick us off. This is an exciting proclamation for me to bring forward because I spent so much of my life down on the river with so many people who are here tonight. But it was really, Ronnie Crawford who reached out and said, hey, is there a way that we can officially celebrate what is happening in our river, specifically from a trout perspective? And so many people don't remember or didn't live here when and never saw what the river was. And it was at the beginning of the proclamation, but to really think about it, when the flood hit in 1965, it put eyes down on the river that hadn't been looking at the river, had forgotten that there was a river in Denver because it was so neglected and forgotten. And after that, people started looking, and you have to think of all the thousands of people who are at Confluence Park every single day, who use our bike paths and our trails, and Grant Frontier Park and Pasquinel's Landing and Commons Park and City of Cuernavaca Park. And in the river, there were 0 parks and 0 miles of trail. In 1965, after the flood, when people started looking around, there was none of that. There was a car crusher. There were, I think, 7 landfills. I spoke at an event once, and I had a guy come up to me, and he said, man, I used to work down there, and every day at 2 o'clock, we would all go out along the river in the industrial area, and we'd all put $1 on the railing and bet what color the river would change. And I said, what do you mean, what color? And they said there was a paint factory where the aquarium is now, and every day at 2 o'clock, they would rinse out whatever color paint they were making directly into the river. That's how bad this river was. And to now, and I love that in here we have the image, because it will stick with me for the rest of my life, of the rededication of Shoemaker Plaza, sitting there where it all started, the very first park that was built at the birthplace of Denver, and the very first little part of trail that went and dead-ended in every direction so that people would use it and then complain to the city, why I want more trail, I want more parks. And to sit there with my kids and sit there with my son, who, I caught my first fish when my son was 2 years old with him at an event that Ronnie was at, and to watch just these guys here pulling fish left and right out of that river, and for them to have gone from where it was completely dead, paint in the river, landfills. There was coal tar when we started digging at Confluence Park, to a place where we can celebrate that it is an urban fishery where you can catch a trophy-sized fish. Now that we're getting the word out with all our viewers on Channel 8, you're going to have to watch out because everybody's going to be down there looking for these trophy-sized fish. But what an amazing thing that has happened, and to be able to take a second in our meeting and to celebrate that, and to celebrate the work of the Greenway Foundation and Denver Trout Unlimited, and Reese and Matthew, who stocked in an experiment to say, okay, the river has rebounded, but can it sustain fish, and put all these fish in there who are still in there and are breeding and are growing. And it's just an incredible transformation and an incredible story that I think too often we look at the city the way it is, or we're on the river and we look at the section that still needs a little improvement and we focus on that, and we don't focus on the magic that has happened in this city since a flood, the most costly natural disaster in our city's history, forced us to take a look at the thing that was the reason our city was built here. The confluence of the Cherry Creek and the South Platte is the reason that Denver was founded where it was. So anyway, with that, I have a couple other people who would like to say a couple words. So Councilwoman Sussman.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for that history. And it is wonderful how much has been improved in our South Platte River, thanks not the least to Mr. Shoemaker of historical fame in setting up the foundation. I have a love-hate relationship with trout because I once had a friend who was bound and determined to teach me how to fly fish. And I would spend most of my day with my line in the bushes behind me. He would say, you can catch more fish if your line's in the water. So I'm very excited that we are replacing our trout in the river, and maybe I will give it a try again because it really is fun to be out there, even if your lines are in the bushes behind you. So thanks everybody for coming out. Thank you, Councilman, for bringing this forward and for letting us know how much progress we have made with the South Platte River.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sussman. Councilman Cashman.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for bringing this. And as has been mentioned numerous times, for those who don't know, before taking his role on council, President Clark spent, I think, 17 years working on the river along with Mr. Shoemaker at the Platte River Greenway Foundation, South Platte River Greenway Foundation. And I just wanted to salute you, certainly Jeff Shoemaker, his father Joe before him, who actually I think pulled the trigger on the foundation and began tens of millions of dollars of good work along that river, to the Trout Unlimited and all the people involved in the good work there. But if I can take a moment of personal privilege, I just want to give an extra shout out to my buddy Ronnie Crawford. Ronnie's been a fixture in South Denver for decades, starting he was mostly in the retail trade. Now, when I met Ronnie, he had a fabulous boutique on South Broadway called Bertha's Rudely Decadent, and ran Bertha's for quite a while, and then moved to a number of other retail shops up towards the Mayan Theater. Was Ace one of them? American Aces. But I've never seen Ronnie so involved as he's been since turning on to the South Platte River. And if you're a fisherman and you are within walking distance of Overland Pond and you're in the Platte River, if you don't see Ronnie, he must be sick or dying, because he's in there all the time. And the pictures of some of the trout that he has pulled out of that river are downright impressive. We're not talking these little stockers that you find in most ponds along the Front Range. There's some great fish in there. These people have done spectacular work, and Ronnie, you deserve kudos for your contribution to South Denver, to the Platte River, and I appreciate what you do. I want to let you know that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Cashman. Councilman Brooks.
Yeah, just wanted to add my chorus. Mr. Shoemaker over there, thank you for your support and your love of the river all through the fine District 9. And Reese, thank you for your investment as well. I don't want to send a shout out to Matthew Burkett, who could not be here, but he leads Lincoln Hills, which is the first African American resort this side of the Mississippi, and is always talking about sustainability and taking care of our rivers. But more importantly, making sure that the kids in the neighborhood get a chance to connect with the river. And so I think that's so important. And thank you all for bringing this forward. And President Clark, I appreciate you bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brooks. Councilman Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for bringing this this proclamation forward. You know, the South Platte River. I had an opportunity. I take the this. Sometimes we take the Jeep together, but I took it up, saw the trailhead waters of the South Platte. We're able to kind of follow that all the way through. I had never done that as a young man. Never got to go fishing. Never had that opportunity. We saw it as just another obstacle from one side of Denver to the other, and not an opportunity to actually recreate. And when you see that river and you follow it all the way up into the mountains, it's beautiful, and it's amazing to know just how long that river is, and just along the course of that river, just how much life it gives. And our very founding of Denver as a result of the river coming through our area. And folks who were searching for a place and finally settled along the encampments of the Cheyenne Arapaho people, because it brings that water, because it brings that life, and it is life. And so, the work that you all continue to do to restore life to that river for what it is definitely praiseworthy. All of us have always chimed in on that, see that. We just want folks to be able to see what you're doing and also to respect it, right? And that means cleaning it up, and that means creating that ownership of it. So hats off to you all for doing what you're doing. Ronnie, I know all these times I see you over at the Skylark, and I'm like, man, I gotta go visit Ronnie over it in his other natural habitat, which is doing this. So my brother, thank you for being here in the chambers. Thank you for this. We just have to make sure that our younger generations learn and can do this, and they see you doing it, and that we have the programs in place so that they can also do the same thing. Right? It's such an amenity. And in Spanish, we say, and especially those Chicanos from the west side, Debbie, you probably smile when I say this. We say ponte trucha. Pay attention. So here's the ponte trucha.
Thank you, Councilman Lopez. Seeing no other comments, Madam Secretary, roll call.
Black.
Aye.
Brooks. Espinosa.
Aye.
Flynn.
Aye.
Gilmore.
Aye.
Herndon.
Aye.
Cashman.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
New.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Sussman.
Aye.
Mr. President.
Aye. Madam Secretary, please close the voting and announce the results.
12 ayes.
12 ayes. Proclamation 1059 has been adopted, and it will be my great pleasure to invite my lucky District 7 constituent who brought this idea forward to celebrate and is the man on the river, Mr. Ronnie Crawford.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ronnie Crawford. You guys have about said it all, but I am a board member of Denver Trout Unlimited, and I have 6 board members behind me in all their finery. Will you guys stand up? I don't know if this can be shown or not, but we got a guy here in waders, the whole deal. We got our nets. We want this to be a fun kickoff to what you never know how your meetings are going to be, but I watch them and they're not so exciting. So I hope this is a good smile maker for the whole rest of the night. I also would like to thank Jeff Shoemaker and his father Joe for all of their work on the Greenway and the Greenway Foundation, and Reese Duggan, who is here, who with his own money through Revesco Properties put over 1,000 stocker size 14 to 18 inch rainbow trout. Those are big. They cost a lot of money. He put over 1,000 of them in the river a year and a half ago, and they have grown to, many of them over 20 inches already. And Denver Trout Unlimited is a catch and release organization. We debarb our hooks, we put our fish back. So people say, do you keep those fish? And I say, no, I put them back so a kid can catch them. That's my standard line. And I don't want to kill them anyway. There is a kids event this Saturday at 11 o'clock at Overland Pond Park, a kids fishing event. And generally the pond is stocked for that. So if any of you would like to come and see what it's like for a kids fishing event, come on down. Also, I would like to extend a personal invitation. Maybe I can get Stacy out. I'm not sure who, but I will take any of you on, and I'm not a guide, but I'll take you fishing on the Denver South Platte. The Denver South Platte is like from Chatfield to Commerce City, but most of us deal with city fish. We're from Hampton Avenue to the confluence. And as to what Paul was saying about the size of fish in the river, I have caught and released a 24-inch rainbow at the Evans Bridge, a 21-inch brown at Grand Frontier, and big fish in there. So they're in there. We can go have a good time, get a license, and I'll take anybody fishing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.